These men did the hard work. Navvies, so called because they built the navigation canals. They were a wandering army of itinerant labourers. 250,000 of them built the backbone of Victorian Britain, the roads, the canals, docks and sewers, and they built the railways. They lived in shanty towns on the job, on a ration of beer and meat, 2 pounds of meat and a gallon of beer a day. After work, they drank some more, and their job was to dig. So you think digging's easy? What about something like this? It's the size of your average back garden and about 4 metres deep. Imagine digging this by hand. Where on earth would you start? Actually, how much of this stuff would they have had to shift in a day?
Oh, believe it or not, 20 tonnes. Because they were being paid piecework, I mean, that's how they knew that they were moving 20 tonnes.
20 tonnes. How much do you reckon you've got in there, Rob?
1.5 hundredweight.
Do you reckon you could get that to the top?
Yeah, probably.
Go on then.
He wasn't actually pushing the barrow, of course. There was a horse at the top that was taking the strain. He was steering it. But you've got to think about the slipperiness of the wet plank and all that sort of business. Very, very difficult.
Incredibly dangerous.
Very dangerous indeed. Very dangerous. If the horse took fright or suddenly refused to do what it was supposed to do, and the barrow would lose momentum, suddenly, you know, probably the barrow would go one side and the man would go the other. That was one of the many dangers attached to making a cutting. It was said that every mile of track claimed a life.
That was the price that was paid?
That was the price that was paid. Life was cheap. Yeah.
Welcome to the grim world of the Victorian rat catcher. Rats were rampant in Victorian times. In overcrowded towns, washing and toilet facilities were very poor. Disease was rife, filth was commonplace. In one single building in London, a rat catcher caught 700 rats. Everyone needed a rat catcher, and this was the most famous of them. Jack Black, rat catcher to Queen Victoria. Rat catching was a big business. There was money to be made. Killing rats using poison was easy. What made this one of the worst jobs of the age was when they had to catch them live. They did it by hand. Rat catchers attracted the rats by rubbing a mixture of sweet-smelling oils on their hands. This worked, but rats bite. A lot. Rat catchers often caught terrible infections. You'd need to be an idiot to put your hand blindly in a hole after a rat, wouldn't you? Smell like an old-fashioned boiled sweet. I think those rats are going to love that. The problem is, half the time, you don't know whether you can hear something rustling or whether it's just you leaning on the... Do you hear that? That is definitely something live. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but quite honestly, when you just stick your defenceless hand in here and you've no idea, I don't think there's anything here, what's going to be on the other end, it is a little bit scary. There's been no noise in here at all for the last 2 or 3 minutes. That's my hand, not a rat. Oh, I've got something. I've got something furry, definitely. And it's wiggling, it's horrible. I don't know, I actually don't want to hurt it, but I suppose that wasn't really the issue for... Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh! I thought it was going to bite me then.
So what do you think now, Tony?
Well, it's kind of cute, isn't it? But it's also fairly disgusting. I don't think I would like to do this every day.
Sure.
Did they really put little children as young as Daniel up the chimney?
I'm afraid they did. Children even younger than Daniel. I know that Daniel's 8 and children of 6 and 7 were sent up the chimneys.
Why? Why didn't they just shove big brushes up?
And there were lots of very poor children around who'd got stunted growth from bad nutrition, and they were very, very slim, and they were very, very agile and could handle a little brush like that superbly for sweeping down the soot.
Right, you scruffy little urchin, get up that chimney. Leslie, how much did they pay these kids?
Well, they didn't pay them anything at all, actually. Kids of about 6 and 7, often orphans or kids looked after by the parish, they'd apprentice them to a master sweep. And the idea was the master sweep would care for them, feed them, clothe them, give them a living, until such time as they were too big to go up the chimney. The only problem is, of course, the master sweeps were out to make as much money as they could themselves. So the kids didn't get paid. They get very meagre food. Often that meant that they got stunted growth. They were very slim.
Daniel?
Yeah,
You all right in there? You're not stuck, are you?
just a little bit.
What are you doing?
I'm cleaning.
Streets. But what happened during the Victorian period was that England was becoming more and more urbanised, more and more people were moving into the towns and the cities, and they were producing a lot more rubbish and a lot more refuse. And plus there were just more and more people who needed to find some form of employment and some way to feed themselves.
This guy with the tall hat over here, what's he scavenging? Are these ham bones? Chicken bones?
Well, these are all sorts of bones that this bone grubber has picked up outside houses and just in the streets of London. And they were a very valuable commodity because he could sell them on to bone mills and they would be ground up and they could be used for manure and to produce soap and other products.
Oh, some of those don't smell very fresh, do they? What about this burly-looking guy? He looks just like the Coleman we used to have when I was a kid.
Well, he's actually a dustman, so he's going around households emptying dustbins and collecting the dust and cinders there.
And that's what we've got here, just dust.
That's right. Most of the rubbish that Victorian households were producing was the dust and cinder from fires, and this dust would be taken by pony and cart to some of the enormous dust yards around the city, and the dust there would be sifted and sorted. Some of it would go for manure, some of it for making bricks. And there would be a lot of other very useful and valuable things mixed in with the dust. So there would be things like old boots and shoes, jewellery, rags and bones, all kinds of things that actually had a sell-on value.
This is a rather sinister-looking guy. What about this? What's that for?
Well, this man is a tosher or a sewer hunter, so he made his living going down London's ramshackle sewers, finding coins, jewellery, silver-plated cutlery, and he would use this hoe to poke around in the old brickwork. But also if he fell into difficulty, if he got stuck in a quagmire, he could use this hoe to try and lift himself out before he sunk without a trace.
Are these the Premier League of scavengers?
These were very much the elite of scavengers because they could make as much as £2 a week from the items that they found down in the sewers. And they had to be very fit, very strong, very healthy because they faced a lot of dangers down in the sewers from attacks from rats, from the poisonous fumes that were down in the sewers.
The first job is what?
First job is stone breaking. Pretty
like the
nasty.
Archetypal punishment job, isn't it?
It really is, yes.
I can't imagine that they would have had these in
They
the
wouldn't have
workhouse.
had those at the time, no.
So, what do I have to do? Just hit the stone?
You've got to hit that and you've
Yeah.
got to break it into really, really small pieces because the stone would have been used for mending roads.
Right. Well, it didn't do anything, really, did it? Just smoked.
No, keep going.
Would everybody have had to do this job?
No, not everybody. It was such an awful job.
Hey!
Well
yes!
done. That only the casuals, the tramps, were given that.
Oh, I can understand that. They wouldn't want it to stay very long, would they?
No.
Oh.
They would have done this for a day.
Day?
Yep, just for one day's work.
And what would they get
in
for
return-
having done it?
Well, they'd get a bed for the night
Yeah.
and a meal. Whew.
They small enough?
You need to get them all about this size
Why's that?
because you've got to pass them through a mesh in the wall, a metal mesh in the wall of the stone breaking cell.
Why's that?
They've got to be small enough to be able to use in road building. And if you couldn't get them through the mesh, then you had to break it again.
So, I've got to get all this lot that size.
Yeah.
The job of being a tanner, and I don't mean working in a beauty salon. If scraping the raw flesh off dead animals, then soaking them in pools of water and dog feces appeals, then this is the job for you. Every little town in Victorian Britain had its own tannery. Leather was an enormously important part of everyday life. This tannery is the last in the country to make leather in the same way as the Victorians. First, you need a dead cow. To turn it into tooled leather, The work is heavy and smelly, really smelly. What do we call this place?
This is the lime yard.
And what happens here?
Well, this is the first process. Once the hides have come into us, we are dehairing the hides here.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've mixed up water and hydrated lime. And that lime is going to loosen the hair by the roots. And also it'll swell the fat on the inside so that it's easy to cut off. So when they've been in there a fortnight, we pull them out. And they're ready for dehairing and fleshing.
How do I get it out?
Right. Pick up the crook there.
Yeah.
And if you put it right into the belly part of the hide, which is out as far as you can go, that's about right.
Yeah. All right.
Right, yes.
It's a bit of a smell, isn't it? Cool. It's like gone off gravy.
Possibly, but you'll get used to it.
Cool. It's heavy too, isn't it?
It is heavy.
So what do we do now, Andrew?
Well, this has got to go up over the beam now.
So we've got to get this onto that.
That's right. It's a nice, big, heavy hide.
It's pretty heavy. How much does it weigh?
It's 100 kilos.
Well, you've got plastic gloves on.
And tights.
I haven't.
That's all right, won't do you any harm.
Oh, it's all skidding under my fingers.
Yeah, so you get that corner there, Roger. We pull it up.
Oh, look, it's all bits of hair coming away in your hands all the time.
Okay, off.
So now we have to get the hair off?
Yes, now you have to work it down with the dehairing tool.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Oh, it comes away lovely, doesn't it?
Not too bad at all, is it?
You know, I think I'm even getting used to the smell now.
You will get used to it after a while.
Do you even notice it?
I don't, but my wife do when I get home night times.
I'm surprised, mate. I'm surprised she's still there. How many of these would they have been doing a day, Andrew?
Well, it depends. A good man would do 15 to 20.
So this was pretty heavy work, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, this is the heaviest work that there was in the lime yard. It was always the least popular job, the lime yard work.
Funny that. How's that looking, Andrew?
Now, let's have a look, see how you're getting on. Yep, you're leaving a few short hairs here. You've got to get all these hairs out, as I say, because once it goes into the tan yard, the hair won't come out.
This was a bit gross, but the swollen fatty bit on the inside took us into a whole new league. And I'm talking Premier, not Nationwide Conference.
You want to keep the blade flat to the hide, because it's on an angle anyway.
The blade gets clogged up with the fat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just keep clearing it off all the time.
It's fairly sharp, mine, so watch your fingers. Okay. All right, let's have.
You're welcome. It's hard to keep the blade in your hands because it's so wet and sticky down here that it keeps trying to run away from you, doesn't it? Poor. The old smell's coming up again there, isn't it? Dear, oh dear. Oh, it's this fatty bit that's so horrible.
Your hands just stink after this.
Yeah. Oh, God! Oh! Poor, yeah, take over for a bit while I go and die in a corner.